We got two big IPOs this week, and we're going to talk about both of them, similarities and differences coming up. What's up, guys? If you're new here, welcome to the channel. If you're not new here, welcome back. This is video number 50 for the year, which I'm stoked about because it was my goal that I set out at the beginning of the year to make 50 videos. So it's been great to come up with that much content. Thank you guys for watching. Now let's get into talking about two IPOs that are coming up this week. I've made a couple videos about AirBnB. I've been following that company for the last few months, just curious about the IPO, when it's going to come out. So we finally got some dates and like a price range of what it's going to be. But there was one other company that kept coming up when I would search and read about Airbnb, and that is Doordash. It's also having its IPO this week. It's coming out on Tuesday. And though I wasn't really following Doordash too closely, I thought it would be good to just kind of get some details, because the more articles I read about it, the more I found it's got a very similar story to Airbnb, but there are some key differences at the end. So what I'm going to do is kind of get into a little bit of the numbers with Doordash, some of the features from their S1 application, which is the application that they submit to have their IPO. And then I'm going to do a bit of a comparison at the end between Airbnb and Doordash. And after that, we'll talk about a couple points and see what you guys think and what I might do this week when it comes to these IPOs. So let's get into it. So let's talk about Doordash first. The pertinent details are its IPO is going to be on Tuesday, December 8th. It's going to be listed on the New York Stock Exchange, and its ticker will be DASH. A bet on Doordash is essentially betting that people are going to continue the trend of eating out more and having home deliveries. This sector, from what I'm reading anyway, is expanding. More and more people are, in fact, ordering in, and the major player that was in this space was actually Grubhub. Now, according to the S1 application from Doordash, it's saying that it's actually taken away a lot of market share from Grubhub. Grubhub used to probably be responsible for about 50% of the deliveries in this space, and now Doordash says that they're actually got about 50% of the market share here. It's worth noting, however, that Grubhub still kind of made money this year despite that, because the space in general is growing, and Doordash mentions that in the application as well. Now, it's worth noting Doordash actually has not been profitable until the most recent quarter of 2020. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later. And finally, I'll share the numbers with you. But before I get into that, it's worth noting that the analysts that I'm reading, it's a bit of a 50-50 on whether the valuation of this company, Doordash, actually makes sense. So Doordash is putting up 33 million shares. It originally was going to price the share somewhere between $75 and $85, but just last Friday, they decided to bump that up to $90 to $95. And I think that they're probably thinking all of these tech IPOs that have come out this year have done really well. They're really going to try to get as much money out of this IPO as they can. At this pricing, on the high end, it would raise about $3.1 billion in this IPO, and that would value the company at about $30 billion. Now, there have been some very successful IPOs this year from other tech companies like Palantir and Snowflake, and then of course everyone knows the FANG companies, which is your Facebook, Apple, Netflix, and Google and tech stocks in general have all been doing so well during COVID. So I think they're really trying to capitalize right now on everybody's comfort with investing in tech. Now, let's take a look at all of those stats and how they compare to Airbnb. By the way, you're probably wondering why I'm not talking about Airbnb too much, and that's really because I've made two videos following Airbnb. I'll leave links to those so that you guys can follow up on those videos as well. But yeah, let's just do a comparison between the two right now, super quick. So here's this little table I made just to make a quick comparison. So Doordash is on the left, Airbnb is on the right. Tickers are listed there. Dash will be on the New York Stock Exchange, whereas Airbnb will be on the NASDAQ. Now, the dates are listed right there. Doordash will be on December 8th, which is Tuesday. Airbnb will be on Thursday, December 10th. The share prices. Now, Dash listed at $90 to $95, whereas Airbnb will be about $44 to $50 according to its application. You won't really know the exact price till the day before for both of these. 33 million shares going on the market for Dash. 57 million for Airbnb. This will hope to raise 3.14 billion for Dash, 2.85 billion for Airbnb, and the valuation is the interesting part here, but it kind of values both companies to be around the same. And I just put another stat here, which is a mid-year evaluation. I have said in another video where Airbnb was kind of evaluated by an analyst to be about $18 billion, but has since then really worked on its model and focused on short-term stays that are not too far away from people's homes, and has been able to make more and more money month after month, even during COVID, leading into its IPO. Now, there was a private valuation for Doordash at $16 billion that was done in June. That's in the middle of summer, already during COVID. And so that's an interesting number, which we'll get into now when I talk about a couple more things maybe that you should consider when you're looking at these two companies. Now, buying during an IPO is always a little bit of a gamble because you have very little financials to go off of. You don't really know how the company is going to do. And of course, there's that element of hype that people get excited when they're first buying stuff, and maybe that will kind of inflate or have the stock perform a little bit better than it should. And in general, there's that factor of just like, what are investors thinking? Now, let's talk about a couple other features that are a little bit tougher to put a number to. And the first one is what they call a moat. Now, a moat is sort of like brand recognition, but also a little bit about how much further ahead one player is from the next. And this is where I think Airbnb has an advantage. For starters, you always hear people go, hey, did you stay in a hotel or an Airbnb? You never hear people go, hey, did you stay in a hotel or an Expedia? And that right there just shows how recognized Airbnb is. It's used here in Canada. I know it's super popular in the States, and people use it all over. It's actually got spots all over the world. So it's very well established. Contrast that with Doordash. Doordash, I understand, super popular in the States. Here in Canada, there's actually a company called Skip the Dishes, which is, I would say, the most popular food delivery company here. There are a few of the chains that use DoorDash, but all the small places use Skip the Dishes. Skip the Dishes is a Canadian company bought by a UK company, I believe, last year called Just Eat. So here, DoorDash doesn't really have that same foothold as in the States. So just, something to note, there's some work to be done there. The second thing would be a little bit about the valuations I talked about. A lot of analysts seem to be on board with the valuation that Airbnb has given itself. It's a little bit split on DoorDash, I would say. Not everybody can get on board with it being worth $30 billion at this moment, especially when you look at their earnings. And one of the rules of thumb is they try to see how many years of revenue it would take for the company to make what it says it's worth. So how long it would take DoorDash to make $30 billion is 10 years plus, like way out there. So some of the analysts are saying they can't really get on board with that valuation. They don't really see how DoorDash thinks it's worth that much money at this time. Now, that being said, this does value it around where Grubhub is. And if you say, well, if DoorDash has 50% market share and Grubhub is losing, isn't DoorDash a better bet? That's maybe what DoorDash is hoping people will say to themselves and consider in investing in DoorDash. Finally, I think the biggest thing that someone has to ask themselves is, well, what do they think that these companies are going to look like after COVID is behind us? Now, if COVID assisted DoorDash in being profitable for this last quarter, as people go back to work, vaccines come out, things get back to normal, are they going to be seeing that same type of growth? It's something that they've listed in the risks in their S1 is that they probably won't, and their costs are going to increase. So that's something you've really got to think about. Airbnb, you could argue, would be most negatively affected by COVID in the short term, but should be able to come back in the long term. You could almost argue the opposite for DoorDash. So something you've got to think about. Now, consider DoorDash typically sees a lot of their customers come back and spend more money after they've tried the service once or twice. So if COVID has found them a lot of new customers, maybe they just accelerated their growth by having their service available during this pandemic. So I guess it depends what you think is going to happen. There's no crystal ball. For me, if I had to pick which one I would go in on the first day, I'm still really gung-ho about Airbnb. I really think that because I'm going to hold on to it for a few years, I will really realize that growth for that company. DoorDash reminds me a little bit more like Uber, which kind of was successful at the very beginning and then had dropped off and isn't really profitable yet and has some struggles. So I would really kind of, just for that reason, giving me that feeling, my gut tells me to focus more on Airbnb. Now, That's if I had to pick one. There's nothing wrong with maybe spreading your money, putting a little bit in each, maybe a little bit less in DoorDash for me. But that's just me. Again, I'm not a financial analyst. I'm just a fan of these companies, and I like to read about this stuff. And I love making predictions. So my prediction is I think we'll see Airbnb in a couple years be pretty solid. DoorDash might be good out of the gate. Maybe it'll struggle. That's the one that's a little bit more risky to me. So I probably won't be putting as much into that one. But that's just me. I would really love to know if you guys are just gonna put these on your watch list and look at them and check them out and get a feel for them, or are you guys investing on the first day? What do you guys think of IPOs? I've only ever bought one company during its first week out on the market, and that was Facebook, and that was years ago. And of course, it's done quite well for me. So I think it's time that I like to do a little bit of a spec play. I think it's time to do another one, and this is the one that I've kind of been waiting for all year. So that's just me. Anyways, guys, let me know what you're doing. Let me know in the comments. I love the discussion, and we'll talk there. Now, this being the 50th video of the year, I am probably going to focus a little bit more on just like freshening up the channel, putting the past videos into some playlists here going into the new year. And I will also be making a video about Canadian banks. It's time to update the video I did earlier this year about Canadian banks and their comparisons. All their Q4 earnings are coming out now, so I'll be working on that in between trying to take care of a new baby and Christmas time and all that jazz. So stay tuned to the channel. Thank you again for the support. We have passed the 800 sub mark. Thank you very much again. So I'm gonna make a video about direct compensation and those types of plans that you might see at work. So we'll cover that as part of the reveal of my portfolio as we continue doing that. So stay tuned, lots going on. You guys have a great week, spread the wealth, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.